over, and now it's not.
Yeah, I think so. Hello? We'll get started. If you guys are ready. This is the last of the Tell Your Story. So, but I have been thankful for all the guys that have told their story. And I hope we've seen a lot how God has worked in their lives and what a blessing it has been to them. So this is my story, and it was a little difficult putting all this together. You know, just going back and seeing things and old memories and good memories, bad memories, life. So, and I want to thank Steve and Mike Dobson for being such a blessing to me because I have no clue how this gets from there to here, from my phone to whatever. And Mike helped me out a lot. And Steve, thank you very much. But I did have a backup plan if something went wrong. And, you know, you always kind of got to think about those things, you know, as you go along. And I would like to show you my backup plan. It's pretty simple. And this is my backup plan. This is my dad, my mom, my brother, and me. And it's original. It was, this is the first edition. It will be on sale if you would like a print after, after this little story of mine, this little journey. So, but, yeah, I will sign it, yeah. Very good, very good. So, but no, this is my story. And it's been an interesting journey. And as we get into it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But it's been a blessed journey because I look around and I see how my life has been blessed with people and friends and loved ones and family members, and I thank you. So, since you've seen this picture of Dad and Mom, I'm going to give you this one. This is my dad, Walter Allen Merritt, my mom, Roberta Bell Merritt. And if she heard me say that, it would be a rough afternoon. It would be a rough afternoon, I tell you. This is my brother, Alan. And then that little guy is Wah. So I'm going to start out my dad. And I've heard these guys talk about their dads a lot this summer, and how that they have been such an example in their lives. Their guidance and just sharing life. Mine was a little different. I love my dad very much, and I wouldn't change this story for anything because it's my story. So my dad, he was a block layer. He had a 6th grade education. But if I can take you around places in Nashville right now where he built so many warehouses, so many homes. Back in the 80s, 70s and 80s, he built Green Hills. We dug the foundation by hand with pick and shovel. And once we got it codes approved, we poured the concrete. We brought the blocks in, we laid the blocks, and we moved on. But my dad, he was brilliant at estimating jobs on blocks and material. And I used to get a big kick out of him because these kids would come out of college, these estimators, and they would come out there and they would stand there for an hour or two and just, doing all kind of pencil work and stuff. So they'd say, you need this amount of blocks. Oh, no, Mr. Merritt. No, you're way too shy. But just about every time that they did the estimating, he was right. They had to come back and get a lot of blocks, or they would overestimate the job and stuff like that. But my dad, his brother worked with him, and his brother, I think, had a 3rd grade education, I think. But being in that environment, growing up with the lower guys, you know what I mean? The guys that drank beer, that hung out up under the shade tree waiting for a paycheck on Friday, drinking beer, using a lot of different language that I wasn't used to. But I've always had a soft spot for the underdog. Because the underdog has good in them too, And there was a lot of good people that I saw that my dad hired and worked with, black, Mexican. They were all good people, hard workers, My dad loved to fish. He loved to hunt. Taught me a lot about shooting guns. But my dad wasn't a man that would share a whole lot about life. He was a very quiet man. I knew he loved us. He supported us. And I don't see how he did it for over 40 years. And I was sitting there the other day and I think, how did he do that? Working out in heat like today, you know, laying blocks and stuff like that. But we never went hungry. Always had something over my head, you know. And I was truly blessed to have a dad like that. But he never gave advice. My dad wasn't a Christian for a while, and I will get to that story in a minute. But he did the best that he could do, you know, and I loved him. And I know I'm leaving things out. My mind is going 100 miles an hour right now, but that's okay. That was my dad. Now this is Miss Roberta, my mom. Good woman, Christian woman. She was the one that kept us in line, me and my brother. She was the one that taught you about God in life. She was a housewife all of her life, never worked outside the home. Taught me how to sew, taught me how to wash clothes, taught me how to iron, great cook. Taught me how to get my Sunday school lesson on Saturday nights, you know. Gave a lot of good hugs, gave a lot of encouragement, and was truly blessed to have a mom like that. And I'm going to get into the story a little deeper here in a minute. There was one thing that stood out in my life about my mom. She raised me to be a Christian, to love God by her example. And I will explain that a little more because before we would go to school in the mornings, Mom would get us, me and my brother, and she would read a scripture to us every morning. And then she would say, okay, guys, time to get on your knees. And she would lead a prayer every morning for many years until I got older and I'm like, okay, Mom, you know how you do. So, but that's always been with me. I had a mom that taught me about God and taught me that you get on your knees and you give the glory to God. Okay? Mom was a person that loved people. She helped people a lot. And Wendell Bird, I'm sure a lot of you know Wendell Bird. His grandmother lived behind us. And Mom would always make me carry a meal to her in the afternoons. I was kind of like the errand boy. Okay, you go take this to Miss Bird. You go take this to Miss Ashley. She had a giving heart to the point of her sister was challenged, mentally challenged, but she had 5 kids. So we ended up, and I don't know, you know, you're small, you don't get the whole story. One of them ended at our house, living with us. So she raised her. And in turn, Joyce got married, had a child. Pretty much from day one, she brought Sonia to our home and said, here. So my mom raised her also, and my dad. But Mom, we always had our house open for the neighborhood kids. It was kind of a place to come down and hang out. She always cooked. And she always, you know, if somebody needed a couch to sleep on, it was there, you know. But just showed a lot of love to a lot of people. And that was such an example for me, you know, that I hope I've taken through life. Okay, now let me go to and I get back. We grew up on Wheeler Avenue, okay? Wheeler Avenue is in Woodbine, right next to the old Woodbine Funeral Home. That's where I grew up, on Wheeler. Lived there for, I don't know, 25 years, something like that. But it was a good place, good community. This hog head over here grew up down the street from me, and I've known him for, 50 years or better. Been a great friend. So, am I missing out anything? She was the one that directed me through all this week. She says, now you need to go over there. I said, it's a story. I mean, how do you do that? You know, something pops in your mind, you tell it. So, yeah. And she's given me this signal. She said, move on. Okay. No, let me go back. I want to tell you about my brother. My brother, Alan. Being a bigger brother, you look up to him, you know. Hey, that's my big brother. You know, I love my brother growing up. And he had an accident on a sled when he was 11, 12. Do you remember the old street signs that was made out of 4x4s that had the street on the name of the street, whatever it faced? You remember? 3 guys was on this sled, and they were going down toward Mimosa, and they hit this thing, and they cut it off at the ground. So we thought everything was okay. So he came home that night, and things weren't right. He was bleeding internally. So he lost a kidney. And I don't know, he loves sports, but they always told him he'd never be able to play sports. So, and I'll get into that story a little more. So, what was happening at 205 Wheeler Avenue at this time? My dad was an alcoholic for many years. He was a good man, but he had a problem. And there would be weekends he would not show up at home. But Mom was the strength. Mom was the spiritual person. She was the strength in our lives. He would leave and then show up, but he never missed a day of work. He would bring home what we needed. So this went on for a little while. What else was happening at 205 Wheeler Avenue? My brother, as he got older, began to steal things. Okay? And I wasn't in this, but sometimes he would take me on some journeys that wasn't good. He got caught. He spent some time in jail. I remember going as a little boy, or an older little boy, and picking up the phone. That's an experience when you go to jail, to talk to your brother on the other side of that wall. And but what else? He got out, and he got in the dope business. He was working with my dad, but he wanted to get rich quick. So the dope business was the place to be at the time. So, and while all this is going on, Mama's having to deal with this, okay? Daddy drinking, her son being a dope dealer, which he got to be a pretty big dope dealer. There was a lot of big people that was in with him. And I remember going to places, and I'd walk in a house, and I would see a pallet full of marijuana at the time, okay? And I said, oh, I got to get out of here. I didn't stick around too long in these situations. But I've seen a lot of things that the world says, hey, come and try this, you know? And it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. A lot of things I wished I'd never seen or never been kind of involved in a little bit, you know? Not the drugs and stuff, but just going to say, hey, brother, you know, I love you or something, you know? A lot of stuff, just a lot of stuff. I've seen people sit and shoot heroin in their veins. I've seen prostitutes come sell for drugs. I've seen people bring stolen stuff in his home. He was dealing with the Mexican mafia at one time. And he told me, he said, do you know why I got out of the dope business, Gerald? I said, don't have a clue. He said, we went to do a deal. And he said, when we walked in this home, I had a gun put to my head. He said, and I also had a gun put, the guy that went with him, and I don't know who this guy was, he pulled his gun out and stuck it to this guy's head. And he says, you know, thoughts go through your mind when you're sitting there like that, you know, and you could lose your life, could die. He said, I looked at the guy, I said, you can kill me, but you're going to die too. And he says, I'm going to get up, I'm going to walk around this house one time. And the guy with his friend or whoever kept his gun on that guy. The guy kept the gun on my brother's head. He said he walked around the house. He said, I started to pray. He said, first thing that popped in my mind is my mom, how she would read scripture to us every morning before we went to school. And she made us pray on our knees. He said, I remember that. He said, that's the first thing that popped in my mind. He said, I started praying. He said, God, get me around this house, get me in here. He walked back in, he looked at the guy, he said, either we're going to do the deal or we're going to die. What's it going to be? So they did the deal, he came home. And eventually he got out of the dope business. So, but the story, as we grow up, has a good ending. My dad became a Christian. I guess when I was, I don't know, in my teens. And the night he was baptized into Christ, lightning struck the building. And I said, Dad, seemed like you had a lot in there, boy. And he didn't say much, he just grinned. My brother, in later years, he became a Christian. Don't have much contact with him. So, but that was kind of the journey at 205 Wheeler for a while. But yeah, my parents loved me. They did the best they could. My dad, when he would come to ball games, I played sports a lot, football, baseball. He would always be off in the distance. But I would always look for him when I ran through up through the goal post to go to our side on the football field. He'd be over there somewhere by himself. So that was kind of the story for a while. They became Christians. And I know I'm getting all this backwards. And so Pam has given me this. Okay, here we go. I married at an early age. Yes, and you might recognize this young lady here. This was taking place 3 blocks from where I grew up. And we'll talk about that later. Oh, here she is. It's Grandma Gamble. Grandma Gamble was like my mom. She was the spiritual leader. She was my rock. She was a tough woman. Never drove a car. Lived down off of Chestnut Street behind May Hosiery Mill. Does anybody ever remember May Hosiery Mill here in Nashville? Got a few old timers in the back. Yeah. Yeah. She worked there for 25 years. She lived 2 doors behind May Hosiery Mill. She was a big woman. And we would go down, my mom would check on her just about every day. We would go down there. And you could tell my grandmother's walk because she kind of walked like a pigeon-toed, you know. And I always looked for her to come around the building, and I'd run up there to meet her, and we'd come back to the house. Took me to town, spent the night, we'd catch the bus, go to town on Saturday mornings, go to the Crystal. That was my treat. You know, the Crystal back in those days stayed full. But man, I tell you what, the first seat that came available, boom, Gerald was on it. I was allowed to get 1 Crystal, 1 fry, and a Coke. And then she would take me from there. We'd walk down Church Street, go to the arcade. She would get me a malt at the arcade and do her shopping. And then we would go back home. But there's one thing that I, as far as grandmama, women back then, I guess, kept their change purse in their bra. You know, she would give me some money, but she would reach in there and bring that old change purse out, and I'm like, oh, you know, come on now, grandmama, just lay it on the table over there or something, you know. But she would give me a quarter or 2, and I'd run up to the little store up the street. And she burned coal and had a big pot-bellied stove in the middle of the house. It was a row house. And my job, when I would go, to go get coal and bring it in the house for her. And in the wintertime, you shut off the doors to other rooms. Man, you're talking about hot. I mean, she would fire that bad boy up. And I would get in trouble because I would sit over and I'd spit on it. And it's, you know, quit spitting, you know. So, but grandmama, she was a widow, and she slept with a gun under a pillow. I'm like, okay. And one day I challenged her. I said, Grandmama, I said, that gun's so old it won't even shoot. And I was laughing. She said, what'd you say? I said, the gun's so old it won't shoot. She said, it'll shoot. So she pulls it out from under a pillow, walks over by the potbelly stove, pow, and shoots in the floor. And my eyes are like this, you know. I'm like, whoa. And she said, did it shoot? I said, yes, ma'am, it shot. And she put it back up under her pillow, you know. But we had great times at Grandmama's. A lot of Christmas dinners. And she made the best hot fudge in the world. She would stir it and then just pour it out in a big pan, and all the grandkids would go in and consume it. There's one thing, when she passed away, I didn't want anything. She didn't have a whole lot, you know. She had lived her life in a way that I learned a lot about Christ, about being a Christian man, you know. And she loved Romans 8. And when she got in the nursing home, I would go visit, and she wanted me to read Romans 8. And it was such a pleasure, you know. But the church bus would come by and pick us up, Rains Avenue, Church of Christ, I guess on Rains Avenue, down by the fairgrounds. And so when we had the little people, all of us gathered to, you know, get what we wanted. I didn't want anything except one little thing that meant so much to me. And I know you can't see it, but it's a pin. And she wore on her dress. And 1 year of perfect attendance. Wow. Catching the bus, working all day, working hard, making $24 a week. She caught the church bus. Wow, here's 2 years perfect attendance. And it goes on, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 years perfect attendance. That was my grandmama. She loved God, just like my mama loved God. Wanted to do what's right. Wanted to glorify God. That's all I wanted. So, it means a lot. All right, I will move on. This is my dad, a picture that we came upon of him being in the Army. He was in World War II in Germany. Never talked about it. Never mentioned it. And we found his discharge papers. And we started looking at them. And he was a sharpshooter. Now, what that means, I'm not sure. Maybe some of you guys know what that means. But he was a sharpshooter. Don't know. But he never talked about it. Never mentioned it. So, only thing he would say was, sure was cold. Sure was cold. He said, I killed a lot of jackrabbits over there. And he guarded some prisoners. Probably saw a lot. Grew up very poor. But a great dad. Learned a lot from him. Now, some of you older folks in here that's been here a while might recognize this young lady. Ray, do you know her? Jean Gamble. Jean Gamble. That's my aunt. I just thought I would throw that in there. I was 2 years old. I think that look Jean had might have been, I'm just going to slap the fire out of you. I don't know, you know. But Jean played a very important role in our lives growing up. She was an example, a Christian example, and raised her family. Wonderful woman. Been blessed to know her, blessed to have her as an aunt. Okay, back to this little girl that lived down the street, 3 blocks. While all this was taking place and going on, God had a plan, you know. And she even told me after, you know, we got married and stuff, or before, she said, I knew I was going to marry you in the 1st grade. And I thought, now how does that work, you know? But a lot of time passed from the little girl to here. We were dating. She would come back up here. They had moved to Alabama. She'd come back up here. She was going to college at Lipscomb. Her grandparents lived here. And then, you know, she walked in church one morning at Radnor, okay? Man, I fell out. I said, oh, yeah. And this is what happened after that. We got married. And what a blessing. She has been my rock for many, many years. Yeah, I love her. And so we'll go on. The story continues. Am I missing anything, Sugar? Here is her parents when they first got married. This is Willis and Sue Waller. And this is Willis and Sue Waller that have been on the journey. And these 2 people, he was my mentor. You know, I told you my dad didn't say anything. He didn't give me any direction, any guidance, anything like that. This man I love, and this woman I love, because they meant so much to me in my life. He was a farmer. He was an electrician that owned his own business. He did a lot of the wiring for Hardee's restaurants and Walmart in the Southeast. He raised cattle and animals. Miss Susie was just a blessing to me. A wonderful mother-in-law, a wonderful grandmother, one that meant so much to our lives. I'm going. But it's people like these people that bless your life, okay? These folks blessed us in so many ways. He was an elder in the church for a while, but he was the kind of guy that would sit out on the porch and just talk. Just whatever came through. We would just talk. And Miss Susie made the best homemade biscuits of anybody in the world. And we ate them like dessert. She would make a big pan when we would go down there and could cook everything. But their farm was one time 3,000 acres. And they raised a lot of cotton. But as the years went on, they had to sell a lot off to keep care for the older folks on the farm. It was our refuge, okay? We spent years of going down there and having our vacations there. Because when you turned off of Highway 280 on the County Road 173, you go through a lot of dark old back roads, but then you come up over that rise, and that house sit on the left side down there. And it didn't matter what time you pulled in at night, the door was there open waiting on you, and they were ready to greet you. And you pull in that driveway, and then the headlights would hit the house, and here they would come. A lot of hugs, a lot of kisses. Every year down there, we would have a fall festival. And we would have, how many, 300? 300 folks or more. Jolie has been a part of that fall festival. We had 2 hay wagons running. A lot of hot dogs, a lot of hamburgers. Wayne Goodman would make his famous Brunswick stew, but he would make it in a kettle that used to cook hogs in, okay? And he would have it so much stew in there, he stirred it with a boat paddle. But by the end of the night, all of it was gone. And we had a flatbed. People could get up and play music, and it was just a place that you saw God, and they made it a place. It didn't matter who you were, you're going to be welcome, you know. And played a lot of dominoes. They loved to play dominoes, and we would play dominoes 12 o'clock at night or later sometimes. They had a farmhand named Charlie that as a little boy grew up on that farm. And they allowed Charlie to live there all of his life in a little bitty room down next in a area. And took care of it. They took care of a lot of people. They loved a lot of people, and a lot of people loved them. Am I missing anything here, Sean? Well, here we go. But I will say one other thing before I get off of this. He died, he had melanoma cancer. And he taught this old boy how a Christian man dies, okay? And let me tell you what I mean by that. He was in bad shape. But every time you went to him to help him do whatever, Pam would shave him. Thank you, sugar. His favorite word was sugar. Thank you, sugar. I appreciate that. Never heard a cross word out of his mouth, anything. Said, I wished I would have taped his last prayer. Man, what a prayer. And we would, during the festivals and stuff, and when we would go down there, I know I'm kind of all over the place, but memories are coming back. But we had worship service on Sunday mornings, because all the kinfolk would come for the festivals and stuff, and we would have it under a pecan tree. And they had the second oldest pecan tree in the state of Alabama. This thing was huge. One year it produced 800 pecans. That's a lot of pecans. But anyways, we would sit on hay bales and we'd have a worship service and still feel the fire from the night before. And we would sing, and my brother-in-law would have a lesson. I would pray. But it's times like that you don't forget, you know. It's times like that God blesses you for those moments in life that, you know, you put in that memory and say, thank you, God. So, I'm going to go on. Kid life. Oh, boy. There they are. Caleb, Isaac, Heather. First day of school. Pretty excited day. Heather came into our lives when she was 12, right? 13. Basically, bad situation. And we finally said, the door's open, you're coming home with us. So, and to watch her at night, not having a mom, growing up without having a mom, I would come home and she would be in the lazy boy with Pam. Pam would be hugging her, and they would stay like that for 2 or 3 hours. I'm thinking, y'all need a break or something. Yeah, come on, you know. But she just was starving for that mother, you know, guidance and strength and example. She stayed with us for a pretty good while. There's my 2 joys right there. That's my 2 boys. I love them more than anything on the face of the earth. That's Isaac. Everybody, y'all probably know Isaac. That's Caleb. Isaac works at Brickstone. Caleb has been traveling around on contract work, working on aircraft. He's been to Canada, Mexico, I don't know where all, a lot of places. Yeah. So, and he's fixing to go on another one, I think. So, but these guys are my love, our love. And I hope I've passed a little bit on of what me, Mom, Paw, my mom, and my grandmother lived in front of me. You know? And this is Heather. How old was she? She got married? I don't know, but she married, and y'all know these folks. This is Matthew and Heather Mahaffey. And I married them that night. My pawpaw was over here on the left. I'm going to give you another story how God works. We had gone as a family to the hospital, and they had checked him for cancer. They called us in the office, and they put it up on the screen, and it was just black spots all over his body. He said, Mr. Waller, he said, doesn't look good. But Heather was going to get married in 2 or 3 months, I think. So he wanted to come to the wedding, he and Meemaw. And so we all just started praying. And he had a lot of prayer warriors praying for him. So he had one more visit before the wedding. Now, God answers prayers, folks. And he does it his way. We went to the doctor. They put the screen back up there. And there was not a spot. He said, Mr. Waller, he said, I don't know who you know. He said, I don't understand it. He said, I do. Papa said, I do. He said, I've had people praying for me. He said, I want to go to Nashville. So he made the trip to Nashville. And it was a great, great weekend. But he told him, he said, before you go, though, he said, it's going to come back. And it did come back. And eventually it took him. And then Meemaw, a few years later, passed away. But they were our rock. So from this marriage here, Matthew and Heather, here we go. These are two knuckleheads here. Hey, I'm going to try this little laser thing. There she is. That little girl, you can't ever tell where she's coming in through the back door, what that attitude's going to be, you know? She might talk to you one time. She might just jump in your lap. She might not say a word, pass you right by. But she is such a blessing to all of us, our family. This one right here, whoo, we call him Crazy Leg Mace. He cannot sit still. He runs all the time. He's all the time doing something. You know, and he has so much energy. He says, Papa, count how many laps I run around the house. Go for it. You know, and he'll just run and run. I mean, he's up to 25 laps around the house, you know. I said, boy, you getting tired? No, Papa, I'll just keep counting, you know. But what a joy they have been. I got to go on. Truly been blessed. This is our young lady that's going to be a part of our family, Kara Ford. This is going to take place October the 15th. A sweet girl, love her to death, and she is going to keep Isaac straight, which is a good thing. She is a nurse at St. Thomas in the in the brain section. You know, so, and she's also studying to be a nurse practitioner. So that's taking place. Looking forward to her being in the family, and already love her to death. Okay, 15 seconds of fame. I told this, people didn't know this, but we had a meeting one night when we brought a preacher in one night for supper. Dan remembers this, and they said, tell us something about yourself people don't know. I said, they got to me, I said, well, I was a model. And they just laughed. I mean, it just broke out. And I'm like, you're kidding. I said, no. Interesting story. I'm standing in my backyard one day with a pair of overalls on. And Kristen Malone came over to visit Heather, and she saw me in these overalls. You know, I was just out in the yard. So about a week later, she approached me at church, and she said, Gerald, would you be interested in modeling? And I just like, yeah, right. She said, no, I'm serious. She said, would you be interested in modeling? I said, model what? She said, well, we're looking for a person to model for Red Cap clothing. And I said, well, why not? I said, you know, it'll be a fun day. I'll be back home, and it's all over. So we met on a farm in Watertown, Tennessee, and we drive up, and I'm thinking, oh, man. I mean, they had tents set up. They had everything. They flew in these people from Belize, these camera people from New York. Man, I'm thinking, oh, Lord, you know. So, and they flew in these models from all over the United States. They were pretty boys. They were really pretty looking guys. And here, this old mug here, I'm like, But anyways, the day went on, they fed us, and they would bring me some clothes. Now these other models, though, they didn't care where they changed, okay? Man, they just stripped down just right in front of you. And Pam and I was going, whoa, no, this ain't gonna work for this boy. This boy's going to the room to change clothes. So I would get the clothes on, whatever they wanted me to model, and I would come out, and this photographer would come and get me, and he would take me to different locations on the farm, on hay bales in the back of trucks and tractors, and just, and then I'd have to go change and wait for the other guys to do their thing. And we'd take a break and eat, and they would come in and look on their equipment, how the pictures look. And so this took all day. And after the day, I got all the clothes. That was good. I got a lot of good work clothes, and they fed me good. Those models were making $800 an hour, and they didn't give me anything. So, yeah, clothes, and fed me. And I always refer this thing to, it was kind of like there used to be a billboard in Nashville for a gentleman's club at night. 18 pretty girls, one ugly one. There it is. That's the ugly one right there. But the ugly guy, she said, if you're chosen, and I just started laughing again, yeah, it's been a great day. It's been fun. We're moving on. You will be notified in about 3 weeks. So I got a call from these folks. Said, Gerald, I still laugh. Said, you have been chosen to be our national model. I said, you kid, what's wrong with them people? I said, they cross-eyed or something. And she said, no, you've been chosen to be the model for Red Cap Clothing in Canada and the United States. And my picture was in all the Vanity Fairs. And they had a convention, some convention somewhere. And she called me, and she was down there. She said, Gerald, your big ugly mug is hanging from the Superdome ceiling. I said, you're kidding me. She said, no, it's about 60 feet of you. I thought, golly. And that was a joy. That was, God laughs, okay? God laughs. And he got a joy out of this, So, and I did too. It was fun. Oh, now you're thinking, how many elders do you know that's been arrested? Raise your hand, please. Hey. Yeah, yeah, you know one, Dan. Okay, this was another interesting time in my life. And I tried to get my original mugshot. And y'all are thinking, what in the world has this guy done? I was accused of stalking a woman. Okay? But I never did find my original mugshot. So Pam put these bars on. My deacon picture from 2000 something. So it was a lady, there was a rental property next to my mom. And they were crazy. They were dope heads. They constantly fought, but they had an 8-year-old son. And this little boy needed affection. So what does my mom do? Starts hugging him, bringing him over, feeding him, washing his clothes, because what was happening next door was terrible. And eventually the lady got jealous. She came over to my mom's kitchen one morning and called her everything that she shouldn't have called her. So I walk over to her door, and they fought all the time, and the door was sprung. And I knocked on the door. She came to the door, and she started calling me everything in the book. I said, Lori, I said, I don't know what you own today, but I said, you're not going to come back to my mom's house and do what you did. It's not going to happen again. 10 minutes later, 7 Metro police cars was at my mom's door. She had accused me of trying to break in and get her. And, and I tried to explain to the guy, because they had been over numerous times before, just, calming things down. So this went on for a while. I hope I'm getting my facts right, my story. So she swore out a warrant for me, and she put stalking. She said I was stalking her out of a tree. And I'm like, oh, you know, I'd be a lot better in the car if I was stalking you. But yeah, this went on for a little while. And one night, the police showed up at our door and was ready to take my kids because the warrant was still outstanding, okay? So the best thing to do is turn yourself in. This was an unbelievable journey because I had done nothing wrong. My mother showed love, okay, to these people. And this, in return, is what they showed. So I end up going downtown, turning myself in. And interesting, you go in front of the judge, he says, he looks at this paperwork, he says, is this lady a nut? I said, yes, sir, she is. And so he says, but we're still going to have to book you. So they take me in the back, and they set us on this long bench. And I'm sitting there, I'm the first one, and I'm dressed about like I'm dressed now. And I'm smiling, and these people coming in here from all, prostitutes. I had a prostitute come in and sit beside me. And she'd been up all night, I guess. She kept falling over on me. I was like, come on now. So, but they called me up for the mugshot. And I've got my number. The number's here, and I just got a big smile, Everybody else was like, So I spent a whole day in jail. And it's a weird feeling to go to jail, and that door shuts behind you. Okay? And during that period of time, she'd also done this to Sonia, the girl that my mom raised, and Dad, my adopted little sister. She was in the other side of the jail. And cost us a lot of money to get out of it. But we went to court. I had to go to court. I had to appear in circuit court, something in Nashville. So I go to court. And thank goodness there was a lot of people from Tusculum there supporting me. And when I walked in, and some of you, I don't remember who was there. Some of you might have been there. Man, I've got a room full of people from Tusculum. Man, what a blessing. It's like, whew. So the lawyer told me, he said, this woman's probably not going to show up. She's done her damage. She hadn't. So they call me up front, and he dismisses it for the time being because she didn't show up. So the whole story ends, it was thrown out of court. But I still had to go through expunging my record and just having to deal with stuff I should have never dealt with. But that's the way it was. That was a journey. Learned a lot. Farm life. Here again is Paw. And I've kind of shared with you about the farm. I'm going to buzz on through this. I'm running out of time. This is Isaac. Paw loved to ride four-wheelers. This is part of the farm. Like I said, it was a refuge, a place of love. He liked horses. There he is in the pond on an Appaloosa. There I am with Caleb, 22 rifle. And for you gun people, that is a Winchester pump 22 1920-something that was handed down from Pam's great uncle. All right. This is Winky, one of the farm animals that grew up and they used to ride. But all kind of farm animals, like I said, he raised Black Angus. And so that's pretty much some highlights, lows, highs. I've truly been blessed with my family, friends, church members, I love you. And the journey continues. What's the journey? Who knows what our journey's going to be, you know? But I know that I've learned a lot about people and how to love people, how to share with people. But telling your story is so important. And some people share it and some people don't. But I want to read you. And it comes from Psalms 107. First two scriptures. He said, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. Believe me, he is good through what I went through growing up. Things I should have never saw. God is good. I'm glad I had people in my life to direct me. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Wow. Stories. You know, you never know what you might say at whatever time you're saying it to people that might touch their lives and redirect their lives. He said, just tell your story. We've all got a story. And for those of you that don't share your story, and if you keep it inside of you, share your story. You know? Share the journey with people that might be having the same struggles as you are. You know, that's why we go through these things, to glorify God. Man, I give God all the glory in this. Ups and downs, we serve a great God, and he loves us. So go tell your story. That's all I can tell you. Share your story. Love people. Time is up. This was just a small section of whatever. Come to the back porch, we'll talk more. Love you guys. You mean so much to me. Tusculum has meant so much to my family for over 40 years. We've been really blessed to be a part of all of this. And I hope and pray that we continue to grow and that we share our story, not with each other, which is helpful, yeah. But go out of these walls, share your story with people. Share how God blessed your life. That's the way we reach people. So thank you. Quick prayer and we're out of here. Father, we thank you so much for this day of life and your blessings that you continually bless upon every day. For your love, your mercy, your grace. We serve an amazing God. We thank you for the sacrifice that was made for mankind. May we always be about the Father's business until the journey is over. And then we get to be with you. We get to be with our loved ones that led us, loved us, taught us you. And that's going to be a wonderful day. Strengthen us as we go through this life. Thus we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. You are dismissed. No.